Hello everyone and welcome to a very special Atomic Mass transmission live here on Facebook. I'm Will Shick, Director of Product Development. I'm here at Adepticon. It's day 2, and I'm sure as all of you who are watching know, day 1 was filled with a lot of Shatterpoint excitement as we did our first world premiere of demos for the game. And of course, we don't want you at home to miss out, so I'm taking the opportunity here with my camera woman Anne, and we are going to be doing a live demo presentation for all of you who couldn't make it to the show so that you can get a similar experience without being able to roll the dice. I'll do that for you with my handsies. But we're going to go ahead and go through the demo, and maybe we'll have time at the end to take some questions from the chat. That's all up to Anne. She's controlling everything. But ideally, this will give you kind of a general feel for the game, how it works, and put some of the rules that you've been reading in all of our cool articles and different content into perspective. So, really quick, what is Shatterpoint? Shatterpoint, of course, is a character-driven skirmish game set in the Star Wars galaxy. It is all about these really powerful moments in Star Wars lore called Shatterpoints. So you as the player are put in control of a strike team. A strike team is composed of 2 squads formed of characters from throughout the Star Wars galaxy. And it is up to you to claim victory in this pivotal moment of a Shatterpoint, a place where even the lowliest character's actions can have a dramatic effect on the overall course of Star Wars history. Shatterpoint really is all about that dynamic kinetic action that we see in the zoomed-in moments in Star Wars where characters are battling out in interpersonal conflicts over whatever their mission objectives is. So we can imagine that either the bigger battles going on around these characters, or maybe this is a covert strike team or small strike force that has been sent in to do a specific objective, and they're meeting up with their character counterparts on the other side. One of the big things about Star Wars Shatterpoint, of course, is the fact that the characters are the penultimate stars of the show. They're right there in front of everyone. Now, in Star Wars Shatterpoint, each character is part of a unit. A unit is composed of a certain number of cards. So, one of the important distinctions right off the bat for Shatterpoint to understand is that every character that you choose is going to be called a unit. So, unit is the overall name for the group of stat cards that make up that thing. Each unit is composed of a certain number of characters. Characters effectively are the miniatures themselves. So, for example, we see here that Kalani is a secondary unit, and this little one-person symbol right here means that he has one character in his unit. So we know that Kalani is a unit of 1. If we look at the B2 battle droid, or the B1 battle droids, not the B2s, they're in the case. The B1 battle droids here, we see they're a supporting unit, and they have 2 little man symbols here, which means that there are 2 characters in the unit. When rules in Shatterpoint reference a unit, it affects all of the characters in the unit. When a rule in Shatterpoint references a character, it only affects that specific character in the unit, or that miniature itself. These distinctions you'll see all throughout the different abilities, so it's really important to understand how that works. Now, you may be asking, if there are multiple characters in a unit, what does that mean for their actions? Like, how do they function on the table? And the answer is that characters in a unit basically are free to go about the table however they choose. They can split apart, they can stay together. The big things with multiple unit characters, oh my gosh, here we go.
We're live.
Multiple characters in a unit is that they share the same health pool, they share all the same status effects and things like that. So anything that, again, that affects the unit is going to affect both of them. However, when it comes to their ability to move about the tabletop or make different decisions, they can do that. Units also share the same actions. So whenever a unit with multiple characters activates, it's going to be doing the exact same actions that are chosen, so it still only gets the 2 actions, which we'll talk about here in a second. When you come to a game of Shatterpoint, you're going to set up the table on the mission because Shatterpoint is all about achieving your mission objectives. The way in which you do that is you choose a mission pack. In the core set, the mission pack is always going to be shifting priorities. Shifting priorities tells you how to lay out the objectives using this map here, and then it has special rules that govern certain effects of the mission throughout the game. So in this case, we see that in phase 2 and 3, or struggle 2 and 3, we're going to have a shifting priority token that's going to score us additional points if we can claim the objective that it's on. Once we have our objective set up, we then deploy our units. We then choose randomly our 3 struggle cards from the rest of the struggle cards in the mission pack. So in shifting priorities, there are 3 phase 1 cards, 3 phase 2 cards, and 3 phase 3 cards. We've randomly chosen 1 card from each of those stacks. We then stack them together with 3 on the bottom and 1 on the top and 2 in the middle. And this creates our struggles for the game. So while we have some limited knowledge of what we might face as the objectives shift and change throughout the course of play, we don't know exactly which cards we have in the deck. Once everybody has deployed, we flip over the first card. We point that card towards the first player. And this map here tells us which of our objectives that are currently inactive are now active. So we see that we have Steal the Secret Plans as our opening mission and our opening struggle. So we're going to flip over all of these tokens here. And these are now our active objectives. So it is our job throughout the course of the play of the game to capture or control these objectives. The way in which we can control an objective is pretty simple. You just have to have the most characters within, where'd my tool go? Oh, they're all hiding over here. How rude, player blue. All right, we just have to have the most characters within range 2 or 3 inches of the objective token. So as long as you have that, you will take control of the objective. Once you take control of an objective, you keep it until your opponent takes it back. So you don't have to babysit, you can walk away, but if you do so, it's going to be a lot easier for your opponent to take control because they're only going to need 1 character instead of multiple characters. After you take control of your objectives that are active, you then score. Scoring uses this fancy dancy struggle tracker. You have 2 different colors of cubes. These black cubes are momentum cubes. These basically represent the end of the track, or where you have to get the struggle token, which is the one in the center, to in order to win the struggle. So think of it kind of like a game of tug of war. As players score points, they're going to pull the struggle cube closer and closer to their end. In addition, players are going to be able to gain additional momentum throughout the game in various ways. And those ways are, every time an allied character wounds an enemy character, you gain a momentum. Anytime the struggle tracker moves after scoring and ends on the 0, both players will gain a momentum because time is running out. And then the last way is, if a player ever scores points but is unable to pull the struggle tracker to their side, they will gain a momentum. So you see, as the struggle continues on, the time becomes shorter and shorter. So there is a ticking clock that players will have to manage and deal with as they continue to fight over their first, second, or third struggle. Eventually, one player will pull that struggle token to the end of their track. They will win the struggle. At that point, that player, if it is the first struggle they've won, will take the struggle card to note that they have won it. The next struggle card will be flipped over. All of the current objectives and control markers will be turned off. The scoreboard will be reset, so the struggle tracker will lose all of its momentum, and the struggle token will go back to 0. We'll reset the board by activating the new token or the new objective tokens, and the choice for which map gets used is going to be for the player who lost the struggle. So this is one of the big tactical points of Shatterpoint. If you lose this first struggle, you don't have to worry about it super much because you're going to have a lot of control over what placement the objectives have. Now you notice each of these has this unique symbol. This is because of the special rules in our mission pack. So each of these symbols corresponds to one of the faces on a defense die. At the start of each player's turn, they're going to roll the defense die, and they're going to mark that symbol on the map with a priority token. The player that controls the priority token is going to score 2 victory points instead of just 1 on the struggle token. So controlling that shifting priority will be really important. Now remember, it's going to move because of the special rule at the start of every player's turn. So if one player doesn't get it on their turn, there's no guarantee it's going to stay there for the next player's turn as well. And this creates kind of a dynamic and really kinetic situation as the strike teams and the characters have to struggle to kind of figure out, like, how are we going to maximize their points. This again goes back into a lot of the theme and experience of Star Wars Shatterpoint. Now, we talked a little bit about how characters and units are represented by stat cards, so let's go through the stat cards really quick and talk about the 3 things that make up a character. So with Kalani here, he is a unit, and a unit has 2 primary cards that are used during play. They have their stat card. The stat card covers all of their names and abilities, their stamina, their durability, so how hard they are to damage. It also has a bunch of army building information on the back. as well as what type of unit it is. And all of the army building stuff is covered more in detail in some of the articles that we've done on atomicmassgames.com. So I'm not going to go super into how you create squads here with this, but know that the core set gives you 2 strike teams with 2 fully built squads. You can mix and match those as well as you start to learn the army building rules and play around with it. So there's a lot of flexibility and opportunity just in this set here. The second card that every unit is going to have is going to be its stance card. The stance card dictates all of the combat capabilities of the character. So whenever the character is making an attack or being attacked, this is the card you're going to go to. The stance card has things like their ranged and melee attack stats, their combat tree, and their expertise charts. And we'll talk about all those as we get into the game and we start rolling some dice and having some fun. The last card that every character has is going to be an order card. So the order cards are how activation priority is determined in the game. And because of the dynamic nature and kind of the special fate determining statistics of the Star Wars Shatterpoint, you're not going to have full control over when and where your characters will activate. Star Wars Shatterpoint is a game all about making the best out of what chance or fate hands you in order to claim that victory. It's up to you to determine how to best use these unexpected opportunities in order to claim victory for yourself. So you'll see that we have a Kalani order card here. When this card gets flipped, it tells you which unit is going to activate for that turn. You take all of your order cards for all of the characters or all the units in your strike team. You grab your Shatterpoint card, which we'll talk about in a little bit. You shuffle them all up, and that creates your order deck. All right, with all that in place, there's one last thing we have to talk about, and that is going to be the Force tokens. So in Star Wars Shatterpoint, the Force has an incredible impact on the game because Shatterpoints, again, are primo moments in Star Wars lore and mythology where important things are happening. And the Force, as an energy field that surrounds and binds all living things, has an influence on these things. It has a will of its own. You as the player are going to get to control that. You get a certain number of Force tokens based on the Force stats of your 2 primary characters at the start of the game. This pool is always fixed and never changes, so don't worry if you happen to lose a primary character, you're still going to always have the total number that you started with. As you spend Force throughout play to pay for abilities and other things, you're eventually going to run out. You do get to refresh it once you reshuffle your order deck. So at the point that you reshuffle your order deck, you also get to refresh all of your Force. There are, in addition, other abilities in the game or certain characters that can refresh points dynamically throughout play. But in essence, you know how much Force you have to use, you know when it will automatically reset, so it's your job to determine how to spend it to the best of your ability. Now, an important note about Force, this is not the representation of Force like is commonly seen often where this is like the direct manipulation, the forceful like creation and control of this energy field. It's not the Jedi or the Sith using things to like push or pull or whatever. This is the Force as a energy field that surrounds and binds, which means that, think of it like the Sixth Sense. So it's the thing that in the back of your mind says go left instead of right. It's the thing that tells you, hey, maybe you should go that way or jump up here. It puts you in the right spot at the right time and motivates you to do the exact right action that's going to have the best benefit for you. And so that's the influence of the Force. It's a little push. It's a little ping in the back of your head. It has nothing to do with your ability to sense the Force or control the Force, because the Force, again, it permeates all things in the Star Wars galaxy, and you as the player are the one that's kind of doing this. And this is how it ties into those abilities that you're going to pay for, and it kind of makes the whole importance of the situation that you're fighting over with your opponent come to light as the Force is an active participant through you as the player. All right, with all that said, let's go ahead and dive in and do a couple of turns and show how the game really functions with all the core mechanics. So we're going to assume that, I'm going to run over here, our Galactic Republic player took the first turn. So we're going to go ahead and flip over our first order card to determine our first activation. And it is Anakin Skywalker. Normally, we would be enthused and crazy about Anakin Skywalker going. However, because it is the first turn of the game, and Anakin Skywalker lacks any ranged attacks, and then no enemies have gotten really close to us yet, moving Anakin Skywalker this early might not be in our best interest. So I mentioned how the order stack really determines all of your activation priority, but you as the player do have a way in which to manipulate the chance of fate that it gives you. You can choose to take an order card that you just flipped, spend one of your Force points to place that card in reserve. When you place a card in reserve, you don't activate that card. Instead, you flip over the next card at the top of the order stack. So we now have the 501st Clone Troopers. The card that we place in reserve will remain in reserve until we choose to play it at the start of one of our turns. So, in any future turn, instead of playing the top card from my order deck, I can choose to play the card in my reserve stack instead. Now, you can only ever have one card in reserve at a time. So as long as Anakin Skywalker stays in this reserve spot, I can no longer reserve cards, even if I desperately want to. Once I play Anakin Skywalker from reserve, however, I am then free to spend another force point on any of my card flips and place that card in reserve. So this is another tactical choice that you're going to have to make. One of the great things about pulling a character early is that you can put them in reserve and you can hold them until you feel like you absolutely need them. But as long as that character remains in reserve, you're stuck with your order deck priority and the way in which chance is going to give you those things. So knowing how to manipulate and when to choose to reserve and not to reserve is going to be a huge thing as you begin to learn and develop into the game strategies. We have our 5 first clone troopers though, so we're going to go ahead and activate those now. We're going to go ahead and pull out their stat cards just so we can see what's going on. So my first goal here is going to be to capture some objective points. So my goal is going to be to move our clone troopers here and here to take these 2 points. When a character activates in Star Wars Shatterpoint, you don't have to follow me when I run around and get my tools that I left behind. That just makes me look foolish. Alright. So, when a character in Star Wars Shatterpoint activates, it gets to do 2 actions. Actions are move, where it can make an advance using this tool here. Alternatively, it can climb if it needs to go up elevation, which uses the shorter tool here. And we'll talk about how that works here in a second. It can make an attack using either a ranged or melee weapon that it has. And those are the 2 actions that you're going to want to use the most. There are a couple of other actions, though, that you can also use. They're free, and they're all very situational, but they're useful depending on the situation you find yourself in. You have... Oh, I'm just throwing tokens, tools around. No!
Pan to the table. Pan to the table.
Don't show my shame. Okay. You have the focus action. Focus is an action that you can take that gives you an additional attack die on your next attack that turn. So you shouldn't focus, or it's not beneficial to focus if you're not going to make an attack on a turn, because it only lasts for that activation. You can't bank a focus action basically, but it's a good way to hit harder and increase your odds of success on an attack. You can recover. Recover is an ability that allows you to remove 1 damage point or 1 special condition from yourself or someone within range 2 of you. And the last one is you can take cover. Take cover allows you to push the character 1 inch in any direction. We'll talk about how pushing works in a second. And you gain a hunger token. A hunger token gives you +1 defense die against ranged attacks. And it does stack, so having multiple hunger tokens and cover can make you very tanky against ranged attacks. With all that in mind, we're going to go ahead and we're going to start moving our clone fellows here into their objectives that we want to control. So, at its very basic, movement in Shatterpoint is really simple. You place the cupped end of the tool against the base of the character that you want to move. You pick up that character. You can, of course, bend the knuckle however you'd like as well. So let's just do that, just for funsies. You pick up the miniature, and then you place it anywhere touching the tool. So this is a legal placement, 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 and this is a legal placement, and this is a legal placement. So as long as you place the base touching the tool, it's a legal placement. Now, there are a couple of things that do affect movement. One of the biggest ones is elevation. So you'll notice here that we have these nice big buildings and these gantries. And elevation in Shatterpoint is really important for a lot of different reasons. But one of the biggest ones is how it dictates and defines movement. A character's elevation band, or the range at which it can hop over things, is determined by using the range 2 tool. So from the bottom of its base to the top of this tool is 1 elevation band. A character can freely move over anything that's within its elevation band, and it can also melee engage anything within that elevation band. So you'll notice that cleverly, the buildings in Shatterpoint and the gantries in Shatterpoint are slightly taller than the range 2. Sometimes you get lucky. So this means that this platform up here and these platforms here are at a higher elevation than our current clone trooper is. That means that even though I can effectively place the template of a normal advance and have it end up here, legally I'm not allowed to do that because I would be ending at a higher elevation. Now when it comes to terrain, it's really important to note that terrain works the way you think it should work. And it does that through a series of rules that I'm not going to go super in depth to explain, but effectively every terrain piece has a couple of different defining traits. There is, can I move through it or can I not? And can I see through it or can I not? And as long as you can answer those questions before the game begins, you'll know exactly how it functions during plays. So this building here, for example, we know we can't move through it because it's solid, and we know we can't see through it because we don't want to see through a solid building. That'd be weird. These gantries, however, we can clearly see that things can move through them, as I break the whole table, 'cause that's what I do. So we can clearly see that we can move through these gantries. We can also tell that we want to be able to see through these gantries as well. So this can be moved through and it can be seen through. Now just because you can move through it doesn't mean you can end on top, because you can never place your character on a higher elevation than they started unless they're doing a special movement that allows that. So you can move under the gantries, you can end under the gantries, you can also see through the gantries. So it works exactly like you would think it would. And this allows for a dynamic range of tables, and it also makes terrain and elevation have a much wider impact on the game. Now, we still want to get up here. So there's a couple ways we could do that. We could choose not to use the advance, and instead we could do a climb. The climb uses the short tool, and it allows us to basically place the tool and end our movement at any level of elevation we want. However, that's not going to get us there. We're too short, so we can't climb up there. We can't reach there. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use these ingress points. And you'll notice that Shatterpoint comes with a lot of ladders. These ladders are known as ingress points. Ingress points can be ladders, they can be ropes, they can be elevators, they can be stairs. Whatever's on your table that you feel like needs to allow characters to be able to traverse up and down freely. When using an ingress point, whenever a character ends a movement within range 1, and range 1 is always the short end of any of the range tools of an ingress point, it may place itself within range 1 of the top of the ingress point. So ingress points become really important in zones that you want to control and be aware of, because they allow that traversal of elevation very quickly and easily. All right, so we've got our first action done. Both of our clone troopers have moved. Remember that multiple characters in the unit share the same action. So even if this clone trooper didn't want to move, his action would be spent with the unit, because the unit is making the action, not the characters. We'll take a quick look at our control because we want to take these points, and we see that we are just outside of it. Bummer. That's okay though, because our clone troopers have an active ability called Defensive Maneuver. So let's dive in really quick and talk about abilities. In Shatterpoint, there are 3 specific types of abilities. There are active abilities. They're denoted by this little pointy arrow down. Active abilities can only be used on the unit's activation. So the unit has to be active, hence active ability, to be able to use the ability. There are reactive abilities, this little double circle arrow thing. Reactive abilities always happen during a triggering event. That means that the rule itself will tell you when the reactive ability can be used. Active and reactive abilities always have a force cost. The force cost is denoted by the symbols after the name. So for example, Defensive Maneuver costs 1, Coordinated Fire costs 0. Why does it matter they cost 0? We'll talk about that when we talk about wounds and damage, but it does really matter. The last type of ability is innate. Innate abilities are this little circle with the line. Innate abilities are always on and always free. So effectively, they're just always in play, and they do what they say they do. There are 2 subtypes of innate abilities, which are called tactics and identities, and we'll discuss those as we continue with our playthrough. For the moment, though, we're going to go ahead and spend 1 force and use Defensive Maneuver. This says that each character in the unit may dash, so we're going to use the short dash tool. And this is just a regular movement, so it's a regular advance, so it follows all the same rules. We can't go up elevation bands and all that good stuff, but we don't need to because we already used the ingress point. So we're going to go to those little zones there, and then if any of the characters in the unit dashed, we gain a hunker token. And again, a hunker token is going to give us a little bonus against ranged attacks, so now we have 1 hunker token. We have 1 action left, but there's nothing within range to attack, so all we're going to do is we're going to do a take cover action, and I'm going to have this little clone trooper push himself 1 to here, and this little clone trooper push himself 1 over to here. I don't have to make the move, but I'm just making the move to show it. So push is a special type of movement. You have to complete the full distance of the push, but you do stop if you touch anything. So if you hit another character's base, or if you hit a piece of terrain that would physically stop your base from moving, you stop the push. And the great thing about that is that we're going to get 1 more hunker token. So we are as hunkered down as we possibly can be at this point, and ready to face whatever the dark side player throws at us. With that turn over.
Surprise, it's also you.
We're back over here. We're going to flip over the top card of our deck for the dark side player. We see that we get Kalani. Kalani has this cool little symbol up here. That is the tactic ability symbol. So this is a big reminder to tell you, hey, when this guy activates, he has an ability that has to happen right when he activates. If we go to Kalani's stat card, we see that the ability that is marked as a tactic is Roger Roger. At the start of this unit's activation, each allied battle droid supporting character within range 4 of this character may dash. So, our B1s are our only battle droid supporting characters on the board. They are both within range 4 for sure, because we can see range 4 is very, very long. So they both get to make a dash. So I'm going to have this B1 dash over to here, and I'm going to choose to have him go up the ladder because he did make a move, and we're going to pop him right there. We're going to have this B1 Roger Roger over to this clone trooper because we know how B1s and clone troopers don't get along. And at that point, my tactic will be over, so now I will get to take my turn with Kalani. So the first thing, so my goal here is I'm going to make a ranged attack against one of these clone troopers with Kalani. So to do that, I'm going to make a move action first. Being live at a show. We're going to have Kalani make an advance over to here. He's going to pop up this ladder using the ingress point. We're going to make sure that we stay outside of melee range, and we're going to go ahead and make an attack. So in order to make an attack, yoink, yoink. We take a look at the character stance card, and we see that Kalani has a ranged attack that is range 5, so that is the distance that you can make the ranged attack. He has a melee attack as well. Melee attacks never have a range band because they always use the range 2 tool. So 3 inches away is always melee. We are not within melee with the clone trooper, so we can use our ranged attack. So we see that we have range 5. Take a look. Oh, we got him. Definitely in. The first number in the stat block is the attack dice, so we're going to roll 7 attack dice. And when we get attacked by a ranged attack, we would roll 4 defense dice. So we're going to grab our 7 dice. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we have 7 attack dice, but before we finish making our dice pool, we're going to notice that we have this rule called target concentrate all firepower. When an allied battle droid character makes an attack, if the targeted character is within range 4 of one or more other allied battle droid characters, the attacking character adds 1 die to its roll. Hey, guess what? Our Roger Roger and B1s are going to help us with supporting firepower, so we're going to get to add 1 extra die to this roll. We're going to go ahead and roll our dice, and we're now going to tabulate our results. So every dice has a critical result. Critical results are successes on attacks, and they cannot be canceled by blocks, so they're the best thing you want to fish for. There are strikes, which are successes on attacks and can be canceled by blocks. Their expertise results, we'll explain what those expertise results do, but basically you're going to total those up. And then last but not least, I didn't roll any of these because I'm doing great this morning, are fail results. Fail results are just not successes. They're complete misses. Some abilities do reference fails, so it's good to watch out for them, but in this case, they don't do anything for us. So what do we do with these expertise results? Well, expertise is a really unique way that we show how characters are skilled with different weapons and how they can basically use their training to enhance their combat capabilities. So, we add up our number of expertise results here. We see we have 2. We go to our E5 blaster rifle, and we find the range band that has the number of expertise we have. So in this case, we got 2+. So we're going to go here, and we see that we add 1 crit and 2 strikes to our roll. So this is pretty phenomenal. This is what makes Kalani a true killer right here. So the end of our result is that we have 2 crits, and we have a total of 7 hits. Couldn't have gone better. Our clone troopers now have to make a defense roll. So we take a look at the clone troopers card, which is right here. And we see that their ranged defense is going to be 5 dice. Now, remember, we have 2 hunger tokens on this unit, which means we're going to add 2 additional dice to this roll. So we're going to get 7 defense dice. We're going to go ahead and roll these. And we're going to see that we got not as great of a roll. 2 blocks. So these are blocks. These cancel strikes. We have 2 defensive expertise. So these will go to our expertise chart for our defense. And we have 3 fails. These are nothings. Very sad for us. We look at our expertise chart. We see 1 to 2 on phase 2 clone armor is 1 block. So we just get to add 1 extra block to our roll. So we have 3 blocks that will cancel 3 of these successes on the attack. And that leaves Kalani with 6. Now let's just say, for the sake of argument, that we didn't roll quite as well as we did, and we only got 4. So for each success in Shatterpoint, instead of dealing a point of damage, you instead get to move 1 down your combat tree or your track. You always start your track at the leftmost spot. So in this instance, we're going to start here at the orange. There are characters that do have multiple options for starting. So for example, like Asajj Ventress here can start on either of these boxes here. Once you pick your starting point, you must move left to right, following the branch trees. So we see here for Kalani, we're going to start with 2 damage. Now damage in Shatterpoint is a little different because of the combat trees. Damage goes into a damage pool, and then at the end of the combat effect, we then take all the damage and we put it onto the character card themselves. So we have 2 damage on our first one. We have 1 damage and we get a shove. Shoves are one of the biggest combat results in Shatterpoint because what it allows you to do is push the target character 1 inch, and then you can choose to follow up 1 inch. And we added a damage to the pool. Then we have this one. This is an active ability. So at the end of the attack, Kalani is going to be able to use one of his active abilities for free. We also get 1 more damage from that result. Now we wind up with a choice because we have 1 more result, and you see we have 3 branches. So we could choose to disarm the clone and deal 2 damage. Disarm is a special condition that says the next time a character in that unit would attack, it cannot use its expertise chart for the attack. We could reposition and deal 1 damage. Reposition allows us to make a normal advance, and it ignores being locked into melee. So it's kind of a good way to like reposition and get away from a Jedi with a laser sword, or to get to a different objective point, anything like that. And then the last one is we can do an expose and 2 damage. Expose says that a character cannot use its defensive expertise on the next attack it takes. I'm going to go ahead and choose to do that one. So we're going to give the clone troopers an expose and 2 more damage. And we're going to total up our damage, and we see we have 6 damage here. So we come over, we place the 6 damage on the clone trooper card here. We give them their expose, and then we come right back.
We had a question about whether or not the hunker tokens get expended after you've used them.
So hunker tokens get removed when a character gets engaged in melee, or at the start of the next activation.
Okay.
So they don't get expended when you use them right away. They do stay until you get engaged. All right, so with that done, I now get to use my free active ability. So I'm going to look here, and I'm going to see I have Tactical Network. Choose another allied battle droid character within range 4. The chosen character may dash. Then it may gain hunker, remove 1 condition for itself, or make a 5-dice attack. Well, I'm clearly going to choose the attack. I'm going to have these battle droids here just kind of like saunter up. And they're going to attack that clone trooper. So they get to make a 5-dice attack. But because target concentrate all firepower says whenever a battle droid character makes an attack and Kalani is within range 4, I'm going to get the extra dice from that. So you can start to see how these synergies, and we're determining these synergies based on the tags on the cards. So we need to talk about that really quick. So you see down here we have Battle Droid, Droid, Separatist Alliance. These tags on the cards become really important if you want to start to maximize different abilities and synergies within your squads and your strike teams. So by playing a lot of Battle Droid characters, you can see how all of a sudden we get way more opportunities to use these abilities and these attacks. All right, so we're going to go ahead and make 6 dice attack with our B1s. We're going to get to roll 7 dice again on defense.
Okay.
Clone Trooper rolls his dice. We're going to see that now. Remember that because we're exposed, we can't use our expertise results. So these results just go away. Otherwise, we would have gotten to add 2 additional blocks to our roll. But because we're exposed, we spend our expose and lose it, and we don't get to use any of our expertise results. So stacking of conditions can be really potent, especially when you start to do these wombo combos. We have 2 expertise results, 2 fails, and 2 strikes. Our 2 expertise results on our E5 blaster becomes 1 strike. So we see that our B1 is going to cancel 1 of his strikes from the block, and we're going to have 2. So we get 1 damage, 1 more damage in a reposition. So what we're going to do here with our reposition is I'm going to have these guys actually reposition back down, and you can move down elevation for free. So I can just walk right off the building and get down.
Because of gravity.
No problem. Because of gravity. It always wants you to come down to its level. You shouldn't let it. All right, and then we're going to do our 2 damage to the clone troopers. And we finished our reposition, so that B1 attack is over. Real quick now, we come back over to our clone troopers and we see, oh no! CT444 and CT333, they've taken 7 damage. They're now at the same damage level as their stamina value. This means that they gain a wound. When when a unit gains a wound, it can no longer contest. It also, all of its active and reactive abilities cost 1 additional force. And it can't impose the melee penalty on characters that are engaged with it. So basically, you can move freely through them and away from them, even if you're locked in melee with them, because they're too busy with the wounds. Now, everything else still applies. So you can still target them with attacks, you can still affect them with abilities, they can still move around the table, all that good stuff. They just can't do those things.
Now, we have an important question, which is what happens when you roll more successes than the spots on the tracker?
If you roll more successes than your combat tree has
Spaces.
Options, you just lose the extra successes. There's no overkill bonus.
Gotcha.
Okay, so the important thing about a wound is that we also, as the attacking player, gain a momentum because we wounded an enemy character. So that's very exciting. At the start of a unit's activation, if it has a wound token, it will clear all of its wounds, or all of its damage, and then it will flip its wound to an injury. Whenever a character activates at the end of its activation, if it has wound or injuries equal to its durability, it's removed from the table. So units will always get one last activation before they get pulled from the table.
Yeah, everybody went to bed.
Alright, so that's all wrapped up. We're good there. Let's talk real quick about identities, because we had one that triggers. So Ahsoka Tano has an identity. It's called Fierce Protector. This says when an enemy character wounds another allied unit, after the effect is resolved, one character in this unit may advance towards the character that caused the effect. Then the character that moved may recover 3, so she gets to do 3 heals, basically. Or, if that character is engaged with the enemy character, may make a 5-dice melee attack targeting the character. Ahsoka really doesn't like it when you pick on her friends. Come to me tool. So Ahsoka Tano can effectively make a free move. Now I know I can't get engaged, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go here, I'm going to pop with the ladder, and I'm going to put her in position for when she activates later in the turn, so that she takes that free movement. I have nothing to recover because nobody has damage over here, so I'm not going to confuse that part of it, but my identity is still triggered. Okay, and that will end that activation. I now take control of things. However, real quick, rewind. We should have 2 control tokens on these because these clone troopers took control of them. The very first turn of the game, the first player doesn't score. So we didn't move the track, and that was the correct thing to do. Now we're going to check for control for the dark side player's turn. These B1s are definitely within range of that objective token, and I have the most characters there, so I take control of this one. The clone trooper is wounded, so he can no longer count as a contesting miniature or character. So Kalani will win this battle because I have 1 to 0. So I'll take control of that one. Now, because it's no longer the first turn, I will score 1, 2, and my turn will be over. All right. So, with all of that said, let's go ahead and let's give Anakin a chance to avenge his poor clone friends here. So we're going to activate Anakin. We're going to go ahead and have Anakin make a quick advance, and I just have to think how I'm going to do this. We're going to go right to here, and then on these boxes. And then we're going to spend 1 force to allow Anakin to force jump with his force jump ability here. And that's going to use this short tool. Now, a jump is a special movement that ignores elevation, so I can jump to any elevation. But instead, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to jump kind of here, and I'm going to pop up this ladder. And we're just going to say that we moved over that way. And we're going to do this because it's a demo, and I was supposed to get that guy closer, and I didn't. So everyone's just getting to watch my shame here. There we go. Look at that. Look at it. It all worked out perfect. Shh, you saw nothing. So Anakin Skywalker jumps up on the gantry, and he says, Kalani, you jerk. You've attacked my clone troops and hurt my friends. I'm going to now stab you. Melee is always the same distance. So melee is, again, always range 2. So as long as you're within range 2, you can make a melee attack. When characters are engaged, they can no longer make ranged attacks. You can target them with ranged attacks. And whenever they would make a move they can only use the short movement tool. So no more of this. You have to use the short movement tool unless you're using that special reposition. And that's what makes reposition so powerful, is that it ignores them. All right, so we look at Anakin Skywalker here. We see that he is in Form 5 Shin. Now, this is a really great stance because you can see it has 3 pushes right off the bat. Super powerful. It's very good defensively with 6 dice. His defensive expertise is really good. However, it doesn't really do a lot of damage. And what we want here is we want revenge, because that could be a Jedi thing, right? It's probably fine. Primary characters always have double-sided stance cards. So once during a character's activation, if it has a choice on its stance card, at any time it can flip it. You get to do this once. You can't interrupt attacks with it, so anytime does have some specifics. It's not anytime, but it's basically as long as it's not interrupting an action, you can flip it. So I'm choosing to go all in on the Anakin damage train. I'm going to flip over to Form 5 GM-SO for my 1 flip this turn for this activation. Now you'll see my attack dice went up, my defenses got real worse, but all of a sudden my expertises are all crits, and I do whole lots of damage. So we're going to go ahead and have Anakin Skywalker make a melee attack. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. He's going to roll his 8 dice. Kalani gets a mighty 3 defense dice against melee attacks.
Oof.
So we see here I've got 2 expertise. My expertise for 2 become 2 crits. So already you're seeing the power of Anakin Skywalker. So we have 4 crits, 3 strikes, and 1 fail. Kalani's expertise becomes 1 block. So we'll turn that fail to a block. We're going to block 2 strikes. We have 5 downer chart. We get 3 damage, 5 damage, 2 damage, and a strain. Strain is the next time the character basically does anything. Moves, take an action, make an attack, does anything. It takes 3 damage at the end of the effect. So you can recover it off before you take the damage. That's really the only way to save yourself from taking 3 damage. So 5, 7, and a strain. I get a choice. I can jump or I can pin him and deal a damage. I'm going to go ahead and pin him. So pin is the next time he would move. He doesn't get to move. He just removes the pin. So we're now at 8 damage, and that's 4. And then we get a shove and 9 damage.
Woo.
So we'll do our shove really quick, and we'll just kind of like bounce him back, and then we'll move forward. You should measure it, but I'm not going to because it's a demo and we're having fun. All right, so 9 damage. So much damage, I didn't even have it out. So we put 9 damage on Kalani. We see that he has a mighty 1 left, so we almost got rid of him. But we didn't quite do it. We did pin him. But let's just say, for sake of argument, that we had gotten that last one in, and we had done 1 more damage. That would have wounded Kalani at 10. So again, all the wounds would apply. He can no longer contest, all that good stuff. But it would also trigger... Actually, we don't need to do that. Hold on. Because it's a demo and I have more time than we normally do, I want to show you something else.
All right.
Anakin Skywalker, one of the most powerful Jedi in the world. He has I'm going to end this. This special ability costs 2 force. It's a pretty penny. However, I'm going to end this allows him to make another attack, a full attack at 8 dice against the target he already attacked. So Anakin Skywalker looks at Kalani, who's not quite wounded, and he says, "This is ridiculous. I'm going to end this." He rolls another 8 dice attack. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we got a crit. We got these 2, which become 2 more crits. So we're definitely going to get that 1 damage we needed. Got a fail. We got that. Kalani rolls his pathetic 3 dice and gets 1 block. So we're going to go down our chart quite a bit here. We got 5 again. So already we're going to do enough damage because we only need 1. So 1, 2, 3. Now, if he gains strain again, if a character or a unit gains the same condition it already has, it just turns into 1 additional damage. We're going to have Anakin jump just because he wants to be cool, and then we get to shove 1 more time. Get out of here, Kalani. I don't want to jump to here.
Amazing.
All right. So Kalani's now wounded. Why was that important? Because this is where the fun begins. Anakin Skywalker's identity says, when a character in this unit wounds an enemy primary unit, or an enemy secondary unit, after the effect is resolved, move the struggle token 1 space closer towards your momentum. Now, if I had managed to also wound a primary character, every Galactic Republic character in my strike team would have gotten to recover as well. So, Anakin Skywalker, the identities really tell you what the characters themselves want to do. kind of defines their role within your force, and it's a guiding light. So Anakin wants to take on the big generals, the leaders of the force. Asajj Ventress just wants to go murder things. Every time she deals a wound, her identity goes. Ahsoka Tano is really focused on protecting her allies. Darth Maul does crazy things that only Darth Maul, or Lord Maul, excuse me, he's not a Darth anymore. Lord Maul can do.
We have a question about stances.
Yes.
Do you get to choose the stance that you start on at the
Yes.
beginning of the game? Okay.
Yep. You choose which stance side you want face up at the start, and then you can switch it during your activation.
Thank you.
All right, so with that, we've gone a little extra beyond. We would come back over here. And, assuming that our cards are right, we would flip over a card and we'd be like, it's the Shatterpoint!
Whoa!
Okay, so this card is the Shatterpoint card that we briefly talked about earlier, but I'm going to explain it real quick. Shatterpoints are the most powerful cards in your deck because they're a wild card. You can use this card to activate any unit you want in your strike team. That includes units that have already had their cards revealed or units that haven't had their cards revealed. So this thing gives you the ultimate choice in what you're going to do and how you're going to function. Real quick, we're going to have Asajj Ventress go because she wants revenge for Kalani, who ruined her favorite droid. She's going to go ahead and make an advance. She's going to go to here. Boop. Oh, we're going to score really quick because, you know, it's exciting. So we would take control of this. Boop.
Nice.
And we would score 2. And then she's going to go up the ladder. And then she's going to use Dathomir and Dexterity. And she's going to jump to here. Boop.
Getting in the mix.
And then she, because you can only typically use abilities once per activation, so Dathomir and Dexterity says you can use it twice, which is super cool for Asajj Ventress. She's going to use it again just to discombobulate Anakin. Boop. And then eventually she would make an attack, choosing her form, using all of the rules that we just did. And we end with the iconic gantry fight that all Star Wars needs to have.
Not a handrail in sight.
Not a handrail in sight. All right, so that is the demo experience with a little something extra and a lot of chaos because it's the start of the game, and I only have 2 hands. For Star Wars Shatterpoint, I hope it put a lot of the rules in context for you. I hope that you see kind of how the emergent strategies and how the game flow starts to go. We would fight back and forth over and over again until eventually somebody, let's say the Galactic Republic because I'm partial, pulled its struggle cube all the way to the end of the track. At that point, our Galactic Republic player would win the struggle, claim the card. We would then go to our struggle deck. We would flip over struggle 2. Our dark side player would get to choose which map they wanted to use. In this case, I might say, okay, this one looks like the best for me because it puts me in the best thing. Everything else turns off and the control tokens go away. Boop, 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 boop. Boop. And that one would stay on. And because it's shifting priorities and the mission rules tells us this, we would then at the start of my turn, because remember the Republic player wins on their turn, so now I get the first chance to score on my turn. I would roll a defense die. I would say the fail, which is not great for me, so it's going to be this one is the priority token. So if I can score this, I get 2 points instead of 1. And we would continue to play with everything where it is. So all the character damage, all the wounds, all the characters' positions, the only things that reset are the objective tokens and the scoreboard. And we continue to play. If the Galactic Republic player can win this next struggle, they would win the game. If instead I can pull this struggle off and win it myself for the dark side player, we would go to the 3rd struggle and the same thing would happen. After the 3rd struggle, somebody's going to win, and they're going to claim the Shatterpoint. All right, so with that, now we have completed the whole discussion, showing you how the whole game goes. Hopefully you're excited and you can see how all of the different mechanics that we've been reading about impact the game, how fast and dynamic and kinetic the movement is, the motion, the different tactical choices that you make, and the fact that you're really doing what you can with what's given to you, and that's going to be what's going to separate your ability to claim the Shatterpoint versus your ability to come back and learn from your mistakes and take it the next time.
Awesome. So these are some of the, these cards here are some of the missions that you get in the core set.
So the way that missions work in Shatterpoint is that players bring a mission pack.
Yeah.
A mission pack is the setup card with the special rules, and then it's going to be a set of 3 cards per 3 struggles. So you get 9 of these, 3 1s, 3 2s, 3 3s, and your setup card.
Right. So the question I think that chat has is, can you talk about how additional mission packs will come?
So additional mission packs will be released in various products,
Okay.
like mission pack products, at a later date.
That's the question.
And then when those mission packs become available, when a player builds their strike team, they will choose a mission pack in addition to building their strike team. And then when you roll off, basically based on the roll off and who gets to take priority, you choose that person. Somebody chooses their mission pack. You then set up the missions according to the way we just did it.
Awesome. Great. Thank you so much, Shick. All right, guys. We'll see you if you're here at Adepticon. Stop by to get your demo tickets every morning. Yeah, we're very excited to bring this to you this summer. Bye.